Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes, published in 1962, is a suspenseful and haunting classic. Something Wicked is perhaps Bradbury's most beloved and timeless novel. I was assigned this novel in grade school, and as a stubborn child and an immature reader, I didn't complete the text. The small bits of it that I didn't understand at the time have stayed with me. The mystery and the dark carnival themes have kept this on my bookshelf and my TBR to eventually tackle with my full focus. Compelled to revisit this by my eagerness to join the October monthly read with my friend Rachel from the excellent horror, science fiction, mystery channel Shades of Orange, I finally did just that. As with each review on this channel, the episode will begin with a spoiler-free review, character analysis, and plot summary. Following that summary, I'll announce a 5 likes and a 5 dislikes segment that will include spoilers. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button and the notification bell before we start. While it may not be the same for each reader, this book grabbed me and hooked me emotionally. It connected with me, and that certainly colors my appreciation of the story. Something Wicked is set in Midwest, small-town USA, more specifically, Greentown, Illinois. We're first introduced to Jim Nightshade, a life liver, thrill seeker, don't you come around and mess with me, 13-year-old boy, and his 13-year-old best friend, Will. Will is the more cautious, even-keeled, non-confrontational type with a gentle heart. The paragraph that I recited at the beginning of the episode refers to the bond that they have where one of them influences greatly the other. Will has a very little bit of a calming or subduing influence on Jim's reckless and wild nature. Will, likewise, is somewhat encouraged along toward the more adventurous side of his personality so as to keep pace with Jim. It is only mentioned once, but Jim has lost his father at some point prior to the events of the story, and it's clear that this in some ways shapes his behavior and choices. Will lives with his parents next door to Jim and his mother. While the book fits into the category of horror, and there are mildly scary and suspenseful elements, those fears take a back seat to the coming-of-age story between these two friends. The book is more haunting than it is scary. The haunting comes more from Bradbury enticing us to think about life, youth and aging, and the temptations of things that are dark than from the more obvious spooky elements of the book. Bradbury elicits an examination of bravery and cowardice and our own self-reflections about action or inaction in difficult or dire situations. If we read with the eyes of the child inside of us, it forces us to think about our parents or parental figures, both as the giants or heroes we may have seen them as or wished them to be, while also facing the reality that they're just fallible human beings like the rest of us. Reading with the eyes of an adult, or for those who are parents or have at any time taken responsibility for another, it evokes us to consider our failures or shortcomings, to think about what are we really capable of and what are we willing to do for another. The horror amps up when the mysterious carnival, Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show, shows up in the middle of the night a week prior to Halloween. This, along with some affecting Calliope music, sets the dark and eerie tone. Of course, the two boys are going to check this out, and they find their way down to the carnival grounds. In their youthful ignorance, they don't immediately grasp quite how eerie the situation is, but they perceive enough to know that things are at least a little bit off. This being the carnival, their allowing for the more fantastical is certainly reasonable. Jim and Will meet, and we're introduced to, along the way, some interesting and yes, spooky characters. There is, of course, Mr. Dark, fittingly named. What makes him most frightening beyond being an imposing figure is the temptation he dangles to fulfill your deepest wishes, dreams, and desires. Frightening about this is that it's A, more than just temptation, as there appears to be implication that he's going to physically drag you to take him up on whatever he's offering, and B, it's pretty clear, unless the victims or targets are completely ignorant, that there are some major strings attached. Like it's the cost of your soul level bartering. Dark ups the creep factor as well when he reveals the living tattoos all over his skin. Not surprisingly, he's also referred to as the Illustrated Man. We also meet Mr. Electro, Mr. Cougar, Fat Man, the Lightning Rod Salesman, and the Blind Dust Witch. all who are in one way or another connected and part of the carnival. The Dust Witch is probably the most formidable of these secondary characters that Bradbury at one time refers to as the Autumn People. The Dust Witch has supernatural abilities that include the ability to sense and locate emotions and souls, and even control the senses and physiology of others. So much of the strength of the novel is Bradbury's, as is to be expected, beautiful prose and the mood that it sets. As mentioned, he refers to the carnival villains at least once as the Autumn People. For some, autumn comes early, stays late through life where October follows September, and November touches October, and then instead of December, there is no Bethlehem star, no rejoicing, but September comes again, and old October, and so on down the years, with no winter, spring, or revivifying summer. For these beings, fall is the ever-normal season, the only weather. There be no choice beyond. Where do they come from? The dust. Where do they go? The grave. Does blood stir their veins? No, the night wind. What ticks in their head? The worm. What speaks from their mouth? The toad. What sees from their eye? The snake. What hears from their ear? The abyss between the stars. They sift the human storm for souls, eat flesh of reason, fill tombs with sinners. They frenzy forth, in gusts they beetle scurry, creep, thread, filter, motion, make all moons sullen and surely cloud all clear run waters. The spiderweb hears them, trembles, breaks. Such are the Autumn People. Beware of them. What the... That is writing. Lovely, lovely writing. In addition to the beauty of words, the novel is filled with plenty of action, adventure, suspense, and fantastical moments. Most profound in the book is a love story, the love between two friends. Will and Jim are loyal to one another, they influence each other, they fear for each other, and in many ways, each sees the other as an extension of themselves. The most powerful moments in the book are those in which these 13-year-old boys, in their own words, express their connectedness to one another. Something Wicked This Way Comes is something completely fit to be read. Now prepare yourself because something spoilery this way is coming. Here are my 5 likes and my 5 dislikes, including some spoilers, for Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. Dislike number 1, Charles Galloway makes some mention of women's lives being fueled by gossip. They live off gossip. Not a good look. And it was really out of place in the story, especially since it's one of the very few moments that we're talking about Will's mother. Like number 1, I find stressful the trope of characters witnessing and knowing something unbelievable and then having to want everybody believe the unbelievable. Bradbury does a great job of keeping it interesting while alleviating the stress of it when Will decides to confess to stealing at the police station and then not confiding in his dad because that's going to be his way of protecting him. Of course, later on, we do get the full reveal to his dad, who we all know is a believer and then comes to the rescue. Like number 2 is the attention to detail and physical descriptions. We get one such description. Close up, the carnival was mildewed rope, moth-eaten canvas. This is what it means to say an author paints a story so vivid to be seen on the canvas of the reader's mind. I'll add this one here as well. He smelled of moon swamps and old Egyptian bandages. He was something found in museums wrapped in nicotine linens, sealed in glass. But he was alive, pulling like a babe and shriveling unto death, fast, very fast, before their eyes. Like number 3, gripping my emotional heartstrings early on, introducing Jim as the youthful, reckless, adventurous, carefree boy who thinks he's indestructible. Nothing scares him. We know he lost his father, and in a rare vulnerable moment, when Will pulls Jim from the mirror maze, and Jim follows with, "You wouldn't let me come alone. You're always going to be around, aren't you, Will? To protect me." "Look who needs protection." Will laughed and then did not laugh again, for Jim was looking at him. the last wild light dying in his mouth, and caught in the hollows of his nostrils, and in his suddenly deep-set eyes. "You'll always be with me, huh, Will?" Jim simply breathed warm upon him, and his blood stirred with the familiar answer, "Yes, yes, you know it, yes, yes." This is an admitted tearjerker. This 13-year-old Jim, who seems the fearless adventurer, calling Will a chicken all the time, dropping the facade, revealing he's really just a scared little boy who has lost his dad. He loves his friend, and all of it is coming out in this moment. It's beautiful and it's stunning. Like number 4, it's worth devoting another like, expanding on this friendship and how many great ways Bradbury describes it. I talk, Jim runs. I tilt stones, Jim grabs the cold junk under the stones and lickety-split. I climb hills, Jim yells off church steeples. I got a bank account. Jim's got the hair on his head, the yell in his mouth, the shirt on his back, and the tennis shoes on his feet. How come I think he's richer? Dislike number 2, The Witch. This is a fantastical story containing lots of dark magic elements. I therefore allow for the witch's magic, but I prefer it in the context of carnival figures and not so much witches, goblins, ghouls kind of stuff. Dislike number 3, The Autumn People. The witch is actually the only character that gets perhaps more than one level of depth. The other villains are kind of interesting, and Mr. Dark is certainly intimidating, but in the story, they bring little else to the table. Dislike number 4, I wanted it to be scarier. Definitely there was suspense, but there were so many opportunities for certain scenes to amp up the fear factor, and it just didn't deliver that. Dislike number 5, the dialogue. I'm not sure the story needed it more, or if the absence of dialogue made the imagery and the action more profound, but alluding back to my comments about the Autumn People lacking dimension, the same can really be said of every character in the book that was not Jim, Will, or Will's father. Would the story and character treatment have been better served with more, or at least better dialogue? Like number 5, books. I love that every time I read Bradbury, books are present in the story. It's very obvious in Fahrenheit 451, and less so, but still present in the Martian Chronicles. Here in Something Wicked, we get the whole library, and of course Will's father, who works in the library. Out in the world, not much happened. But here in the special night, a land bricked with paper and leather, anything might happen. Always did. Listen. And you heard 10,000 people screaming so high, only dogs feathered their ears. This was a factory of spices from far countries. Here, alien deserts slumbered. Up front was the desk where the nice old lady, Miss Watrous, purple stamped your books, but down off away were Tibet and Antarctica, the Congo. Something Wicked This Way Comes features a spooky carnival, intimidating villains, and a healthy dose of suspense. But more than that, it's about living life and living in the moment. Loyalty, friendship, youth, aging, courage, and most of all, love. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Leverts. This is Fit to Be Read. Please like, please subscribe, please click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you.